Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good, Declan. Yourself?
Very well. Shall we talk about Sherlock Holmes, Memories of
Let's
Murder?
let's do that. I played Sherlock Holmes in Sherlock Holmes Memories of Murder. So pretty much my character is dealing with Alzheimer's disease, which he doesn't want to admit to himself as well. And it is pretty much playing on him the whole way through. You can't really see it quite as much earlier on in the piece. I mean, it's there. The way that I was thinking of the whole way that I was playing it is I've got that the whole way through. So sometimes I might look at stuttering on a line or thinking, I forget. Like, I know there was a line in there that said, "Where's Watson?" I'm like, well, I forget.
Where's Watson, Sherlock? Oh, I forget.
Even though maybe some of it as well was the fact that my time period to learn the lines was somewhat limited in occasion as well. But I at least felt that I knew what it was, but I also sort of conveying things like my dad had Alzheimer's disease, so I was thinking very much about that. There was also a little bit of thoughts around William Hartnell, who played the first Doctor. He had arterial sclerosis,
Mm.
so it was affecting his mind as well. And you notice that when he was acting things, sometimes he would pause and maybe say things like, "Oh, don't worry about that," or he would forget. He'd go Chesterton, so he would forget people's names, and that was him just actually trying to remember his lines, but it came across sort of in his performance as well. So I was definitely feeling like tapping into that, and of course, having seen the movie as well, when you've seen it, you know that he's unconsciously gone through and committed this murder, which he wasn't even really aware of himself. He'd sort of dismissed that from part of his mind. And that sort of confusion definitely comes in when you're going through like a mental condition like dementia, and that you'll forget. You'll forget that something was there. You're not quite sure. And I thought it was an interesting play from that point of view, that you didn't really think that because the Sherlock Holmes stories are gone, you never really think Sherlock Holmes is going to be the one that's actually committed this crime. But when you're in that sort of state as well, and like thinking about my dad too, that you can get angry as well in a way that maybe you wouldn't normally be, just
Mm.
because
Yeah.
you're just not quite the same way anymore. So I sort of think that him actually performing this crime, he was desperately trying to hold on to everything that was still himself as much as he possibly could without admitting that sort of situation. But he sort of had embraced his own personal feelings of losing that, and that's what led to this crime actually occurring. That he was trying to hold on to himself and what he was, and it sort of came very much in the acceptance. But then towards the end, right at the very end, where he basically was saying with Watson that he was sort of somewhat agreeing with Watson that, oh yeah, we'll just sweep it all underneath the carpet, and it never happened. He still identified to himself that he couldn't not be himself and take responsibility for what he'd done, irrespective of whether or not there was part of his illness coming into it and everything else. He'd still actually done this under normal circumstances. He probably wouldn't. But it's interesting too, because we've each got that darker side of ourselves, and it was the darker side of himself, and those things sort of like the floodgates open up as well when you've got that sort of condition. Those other parts of yourself that aren't normally inherent in your personality, they come more to the forefront.
Nonsense, Watson. I'm the great Sherlock Holmes. Billions of people sing my praise. If you want to retire, be my guest, but I'm not going down without a fight.
It's interesting to hear you say, like, how you approached the line deliveries and so on. Maybe you didn't have as much time and you were used to different sorts of performances as well. I was wondering if you
Yeah.
wanted to talk maybe a bit about your background and the different sorts of work that you've done in the past, and
Yep.
maybe how it compared to actually acting on screen, because was it something that you were really used to?
Yeah. So look, no, it wasn't something that really used to, but lots of things that I've done in the past sort of led to me feeling a level of confidence that I'd be able to do this as
Yeah.
well. So I come from a very theatrical background family wise. So my father was involved in directing. He directs stage plays, 12th Night Theatre or Arts Theatre, was involved in the creation of the Australian Youth Ballet, worked with Queensland Modern and Contemporary. We did quite a lot with Ballet Theatre of Queensland. Lots of times in my childhood was spent actually around that theatre environment, like helping him build sets and organising other related, did account stuff and that as well. But beyond that, of course, my family run a dance studio. So my mother and aunt run Ashgrove Dance Studio. So I've been dancing with them since 1978, since the age of 5. And that's predominantly been where a lot of my background in the theatre has been. However, I did star as Oliver in Oliver at school, the school play. But beyond that, the other way that I sort of convey things, so I mime lots of songs and have been doing that since I was 17 for Ashgrove Dance Studio. And I take a regime of learning all of the words, but not just learning all of the words, learning all of the places where there are breaths that are taken. So I've had lots of people believe that I was actually singing when, in fact, I'm just miming a song. A lot of times Phantom of the Opera or some other like big musical related numbers. But I don't just simply mime the words. I also think of putting myself in the place of the person to convey the emotion of what they're actually singing about at that time, and thinking and feeling and thinking about those things that have happened in my life, particularly if it's something a strong sort of powerful song where maybe it's sourced from a turmoil or negativity. I'll think about those things that have happened in my life. So I think about conveying that. And beyond that, I suppose it's just my communication in general. I worked in customer service for 10 years, and I work as a project manager as well. So now, so communication is fairly key aspect, and being able to convey information and be able to emote in a particular way and use my voice in a particular way that's going to be able to convey the right sort of sentiment about things. So I was thinking of, like, I add all of those things together, and that background is how I sort of shaped the character and how I thought it would be based on all of those different bits of my experience. And I did do a very small part in a movie that was actually filmed in LA. I was just there visiting Blake, actually. At the time, he was working on a movie over there with Neil Johnson. I showed up and they said, "Hey, do you want to come down to Malibu Beach tomorrow? And we'll throw on this black armored outfit for you, and you can go into the surf and race out of there," because they wanted to capture this shot. And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And it was really cold that particular day, but I got out there into the surf and got knocked on my ass many times. And there were quite a few takes in that. Neil got something that he wanted out of it, at least. That was another, I suppose, little moment. And I was wearing a mask. Of course, you'd never probably even know that I was in it. In fact, if you look at the credits, he forgot to put my credit in. It was only there for one day.
And what would you have me do?
Don't you see? This is your chance to rise above. Retire with me. We can hide the weapon away and no one need ever be the wiser.
With Blake in particular, you've got quite an extensive background with him. And I originally approached you to be in the movie. I said, "Would you be interested?" And you were like, yeah. And then you went away and like got in contact with Blake, asking if he'd like to be in it. Would you like to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've known Blake for a very long while now. I actually knew him probably around 1996. I probably first met him. He ran a toy store in Elizabeth Street in Brisbane CBD called Fan Attic. And anyway, in 1998, I had my sort of dark moment. I had my marriage separation happen, and that wasn't something quite difficult for me. Anyway, I went in and said to Blake about this, and he automatically sort of took me under his wing, said, come over to his place. And of course, I'd never done that before. And I started getting involved in different jobs that he may do, costume jobs and other various sort of jobs that I've done with Blake over the years. And then just had that sort of good friendship with him. We've always kept in touch. And even though he lived in the UK for many years, he saw the site behind you there very often. And so I would every few years go over to the UK and caught up with him and kept up with what he's doing and did things. I went to the big Doctor Who convention that was there for the 50th. Anyway, with everything that he's been involved in, I've always known he's done quite a few things with Neil Johnson, and just generally how we sort of interact with each other, like bouncing things off each other in the way that we discuss. So I knew that he was going to be able to do justice to that role and that we would work very well on that. And because of the relationship that Sherlock has with Watson is that sort of close relationship, it would make that easier. So he could do the job I knew and was going to be able to really do it justice. But at the same time as well, it was going to make us easier in our sort of collaboration because we could bounce things off each other just naturally, having been friends for so many years there now. It's 26 years.
23 seconds. Well done, sir.
Thank you, Inspector. The chess pieces were a dead giveaway. Our victim was murdered by the Russian mafia, nerve agent in her tea.
Can you remember any particular challenges or particular favorite moments from filming? Because there's so many that I have of filming with you, but one thing that I really wanted to commemorate you on and just say well done is that I was so amazed at what a professional you were. And I think your background in theater and so on just really, I don't want to say trained you, but you were just so professional on set. And if we had to go again, set up another shot, you're like, all right, back to the start. Let's go through it again. And I also found it very easy to work with you in that you were willing to put yourself out there, do as much as you could for the role. You also came to set with lots of different ideas as well, of different sorts of things that you thought your character might like to do or say. You might highlight different parts in the script and be like, I don't know if Sherlock would say that. So I found the collaborative nature of working with you really, really valuable, actually. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, John, if there were any particular favorite moments or challenges that you found from actually being on set.
I liked the fact that it was that sort of, just in general, there was that sort of, we dressed in our olden sort of outfits, but it was sort of a modern day in its way as well. Like I'm driving my MX-5 around in one of the shots, and of course I love my MX-5. It's one of my little pleasures. With respect to how sort of work on the set, so in dancing as well, choreography is everything as well. It's we learn it, we do it again, we do it again, we do it again. We keep on doing it and we move forward and that sort of stuff. So we build it up till it reaches a particular point, and you're never going to get it there straight away. So that going over it again and thinking about trying it something differently. And so you'd bring that to me as well. It's there was one scene that we filmed in the corridor here at my place, and Watson was collecting his stuff because he was retiring.
Yeah.
And I know originally that I brought it as, I thought you were retiring, sort of I was annoyed. Then one of the directions you gave to me is you make it more you're trying to convey that you don't want him to retire. He wants, you really still want him to be there. You need him. And so we tried it that way as well. It's oh, I thought you were retiring. So getting good direction is good as well on trying different ways to play through. And I know you said there were different things that I thought of, and there was the really sort of over the top, egocentric, I'm the great Sherlock Holmes. Billions of people sing my praise. And I thought that it would be fun and good to sort of bring that into it as well. And just in general, being on the set, I like to have the humor there as well. and I know there's probably lots of outtakes here and there where I will say something expletive. That's just the nature of how it is, but just always sort of keep going and go again. And I never felt tired in sort of doing that reiteration. I think, again, like you say, it's probably just come from the theatre background and the dance background that I had, is never too much to just keep doing it again. But I think part of that as well leads in from working in IT.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the old diagnostic days, try this, doesn't work. Try this, doesn't work. Keep on going with it. Or if you got bugs or things like that, bring all that. So it's really sort of bringing in all of those experiences. But look, just working on the set in general, just like working there with Blake too, and like we'd have a bit of a laugh and be a bit stupid about some things. I remember in particular, we did many takes of, "Oh, Sherlock." And not that we were trying to make it a mockery or anything like that as well, but at the same time, having that sort of fun part to the shoot as well. And as long as we're not burning a whole heap of film in inverted commas or time or taking it to the degree, getting the job done, and also as well having fun with it as well. So that's where I brought in how I work as well. I'm there to get the job done, but I'm also there to have a good time as well, and try and be prepared enough that I'm not wasting time as well, which is where we're trying to know my lines as best as I possibly could, which with the job that I do sometimes was sort of limited.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great experience, man. And like there were a few different places and over a few different weeks, but it was good to just block out that time period and just try and crack it out in that time period, because I just knew that it was going to get busy with everything else, and like Astro Dance Studio show and work and another multitude of things that I do. I'm probably the hardest person to schedule.
My, how the great Sherlock Holmes has fallen. You should have quit while you were ahead.
I am the great Sherlock Holmes, and I will solve this case.
Did you find it some pressure at all to take on this role?
No, I didn't find any pressure to take on the role. I'm
because you did so well, and like I had scenes with you, and so did Blake and David, and both of them said when I talked to them, they're like, John was Sherlock Holmes, and I have to say the same thing. And like when I was trying to act opposite you, you're just so in the zone, and your face was like stern because we're kind of enemies in the film. So I really felt like you did such a good job, John, to carry the film on your back and have all the emotion. And like you say, there's so many different layers to Sherlock with his dementia, but not giving it away too early for the audience as well. You as an actor know what's going on, but him as a character doesn't know what's going on. And just all that different stuff. It's such a hard role to play.
Compartmentalization comes into it as well. So you think about, like, you've got the context of everything else, but you have to be in the moment.
Yeah.
So you got to be in that exact moment where I was at that particular time. And if there was anything else, and I did think about the scenes that were happening, because I mean, of course, the whole thing wasn't chronological, because we didn't have the scene where your character's murder took place until the end, when I'm sitting around having a look at the board, and love that bit as well, by the way, as well. Felt a bit like an idiot just going like, but I mean, but you know, we fixed it in post. The effects, it was sort of good the way that it was, but just trying to sort of have that in the back of the mind. I was trying to sort of play it that event was still in his mind somewhere, and it wasn't in his forefront, but it was sort of just there, and sort of added into his confusion. So like there's like confusion around when he had sort of double interviewed people. And he didn't know he double interviewed people, and that, and opens up his notepad, $6 billion that I had written down on there. And of course, he'd already had this interview. So I think just keeping all of that in mind. And look, I had a great time sort of acting across everyone that was in it as well. It was fun from that point of view. But no, I didn't ever really feel pressure by it. I don't really sort of suffer the stress from the point of view of lots of things happening at once. It's just a matter of scheduling those things in to make it work.
My, how the great Sherlock Holmes has fallen.
I didn't kill nobody.
what was your favorite scene to film and what was the most challenging scene to film?
I don't really want to pick one particular scene, so I'll give you a few scenes that I thought were really good without the entire movie, and that's not excluding the other scenes. So that doesn't mean that they're not any good. I really enjoyed driving around the MX-5 and having that filmed, but that was all silent. That wasn't filming anything. Yep. I did enjoy the scene as well when you swaggered down with your Strand magazine, which I did not know existed, and when you held it up, I was like, You've got the Strand magazine. So I had a bit of a chuckle on that. That was a fun moment. Had a really good time as well doing that scene up on the hill with Blake when he's trying to say to me about retiring. That was a good little scene there as well because of the way that he sort of played that too, but also my releasing the anger that Sherlock had, which part of it was really himself. Like that it was him, he who has the problem, and that was, getting that out was really good, and it was good. I've known Sarah for pretty much probably her entire life through dancing as well, so it was nice having that scene as well. And I know she said to me that she enjoyed being able to mock and argue with me. I take that with a grain of salt. I'm sure that's just a bit of fun from her perspective. I know I've chosen more than one there, but they're sort of favourites in different ways.
Strand, I must question Mrs. Parks at once. He mentioned a falling out when we first met. There's more to this than meets the eye.
I'll call her in immediately, sir.
How do you feel watching the final product then? We had a cast screening a few weeks ago. How do you feel actually finally watching the final thing?
Yeah, no, look, it was a very positive experience, and just being able to watch it there with my fellow castmates as well was really good as well, because I don't think all of us had been together even at all, and just to see how it was working with all of the cuts, right, and how it flowed, because of course I hadn't really seen that flow, and like the first scene that we ever filmed was at your place where I murder you, and that was the first day. So yeah, being able to then see it in the actual order that it's going to be in the movie was really good, and the addition of the music and everything like that was a really sort of good experience. It was very enjoyable.
To wrap everything up though, John, I just wanted to say thank you so much for just getting involved and putting your best foot forward and all the effort and commitment that you put into the movie, and like you say, just bringing so much fun to the set and collaboration. Yeah. I think we had such a good time, and I'm sure that it won't be the last time that we do something together. I'll just have to start writing a new script now.
And I was just going to say thank you, Declan, as well, for asking me to get involved with it. It was a pleasure.